Come, let us open with Buddhist philosophy and conclude with Tantric chanting to help us meditate like a Jedi. Oh, wrong button. Let's try this one. Okay. Welcome to Nerdy Nirvana, a concise meditation manual based on Prahe Vajra's 5 treatises. First, let's begin with the first noble truth of stress. From a certain point of view, stress is anything that circumstantially, physically, interpersonally, or mentally inhibits our ability to survive and thrive as a species, such as not receiving what we need when we need it for as long as we need it, or similarly enduring that which is harmful. Let's continue with the second noble truth of cause, exacerbation, or samudaya. We evolved a collection of instincts to survive those stressors. These are fine when used sparingly, but since the Neolithic Revolution, we have been forced to overuse them. Enslaved by the fleeting, short-term pleasures of our dopamine-oriented reward system, we have become defined by our controlling tendencies, and as such, overfocus, overanalyze, and overbelieve to such a degree that we exhaust our dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortex, which triggers our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. Shift, shift. Causing our tendencies to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel to be the guiding light by which we needlessly squander our brief human lives. Let's continue with the third noble truth of cessation or liberation. Shift. Shift. Excuse me. The fulfillment for which we yearn could only be delivered by our oxytocin-oriented system that rewards our tendencies to be flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Let's continue with the fourth noble truth, the Eightfold Path. This meaningful path of enlightenment has 8 folds. I want to make sure this fits on the screen well. Please bear with me. Fabulous. Let us forsake the exhausting habit of actively fighting against our own autonomic nervous system, the hardware of our Buddha nature, and instead with it, cooperate. Hey, Ruth. Good to see you. By silently and mentally reciting the verb watch each time, we feel our chest subtly swell as we inhale. And by silently and mentally reciting the verb rest each time, we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. Let us explore how this works, which brings us to the seventh-fold mindfulness, or sati. During each inhalation, spontaneous and uncontrived, the sympathetic nervous system centered in the middle bit of our spinal cord is already wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly watch our perceptions. The sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, and scents of the four bases of mindfulness: the circumstantial, physical, interpersonal, and mental, including our abilities to emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. Instead of indulging our controlling tendencies to shove at things like circumstantial danger, physical pain, interpersonal scorn, and mental shame, as well as reach for things like circumstantial safety, physical bliss, interpersonal praise, and mental fame, let us choose instead to be vulnerable to all that we experience, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. This brings us to the eightfold meditation, samadhi or passaddhi. What are we to do with all that we watch? Simple. With every exhalation, the top bit and the bottom bit of that same spinal cord, known together as our parasympathetic nervous system, is already wired to rest in such a manner that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand. Until, of course, the next inhalation, when the cycle begins afresh, and like the ticking pendulum of a grandfather clock, we continue to watch mind's antics and rest in its non-graspable nature. Let's take a quick technical aside with Bengali crease counting. The acquisition of a new skill could make us anxious. Okay, I'm going to update this. The process of acquiring a new skill could make us anxious, and even feel that we, like a kind of Rip Van Winkle, could sit and meditate only to open our eyes and find that a century has passed us by. Some have found that the best way to non-neurotically time our meditation is to therefore practice a variation of Bengali crease counting. It could take more than 1 minute to count 16 inhalations by touching the tip of our right thumb to the creases and tips of its little, ring, middle, and index finger. It could take more than 20 minutes to count 16 sets of 16 inhalations each by touching the tip of our left thumb to the creases and tips of its little, ring, middle, and index fingers. It could take more than an hour to count 3 collections of 16 sets of 16 inhalations each by using the tip of our left middle finger to first support our right middle finger's larger lower knuckle. And then support its middle knuckle. And eventually support its very small upper knuckle, all while resting both hands palms up in our lap. Remember, that which at first feels awkward could be mastered if practiced once every 12 hours after only a week or so. Having explored the Four Noble Truths' need for mindfulness and meditation, as well as their actual processes and supportive techniques, we could now consider how the authentic practice of this mindfulness and meditation could oopsie, the screen went berserk. Let's see, I'm gonna tap button 7. Could cause us to effortlessly, automatically, and efficiently master the remaining 6 folds of the Buddha's 8-fold path of enlightenment. Fourth, oopsie, let's try this again. The first fold of wisdom, or pana, or ditti. As we sit and breathe and watch and rest, all that we notice could fleetingly and effortlessly come to feel impermanent, evanescent, and far too subject to change to ever be permanently grasped. The more we sit and breathe and watch and rest, the more our anxious and aggressive amygdala is calmed. And the more our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated, so marinating our experience of the 4 bases of mindfulness that mentally our intentions are spontaneously kinder, the second fold. Interpersonally, our utterances are naturally kinder, the third fold. Physically, our conduct is automatically kinder, the fourth fold. And circumstantially, our commerce is impulsively kinder, the fifth fold. Thus, forging a heaven on earth, eventually a peaceful death, and even an auspicious rebirth, figuratively, if not literally. This brings us to the 6th fold of effortless effort. The more we watch mind's antics and rest in its non-graspable nature, the more we automatically experience the effortless effort, or wu wei, that comes not from calculated contrivance nor from wild scatteredness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. Let us transcend our elitist conditioning to consider the possibility that enlightenment is merely a mastery of this 8-fold path. As children, the skills to use the toilet, brush our teeth, tie our shoes, and ride a bike felt insurmountable. And yet, with time and effort and tears, we so mastered these skills that we came to perform them spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Similarly, enlightenment's 8-fold path could likewise be mastered. Perhaps that is why, in the second to final passage of his Discourse on the 4 Bases of Mindfulness, the Buddha is said to have explained that one could master this path in as suddenly as 7 days. No, doing so does not mean we'll never experience the presence of any pain or any craving ever again. It simply means we will have so mastered the Buddha's figurative tool chest, with which we could sustainably transcend the tyranny of each sling and arrow of outrageous fortune. So, once every 12 hours or so, may we sit and breathe and watch and rest. Having completed our opening lesson, we could now shift gears. It is Qui-Gon Jinn Tuesday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after about 30 seconds of housekeeping. Let's see, let's move my tushy to the right a little bit. Okay. This is Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friend, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the majority of the remainder of this live stream, let us watch the antics of mind as silently and mentally we recite the verb watch as we breathe in, and let us rest in mind's non-graspable nature as silently and mentally we recite the verb rest during each exhalation. And of course, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I intermittently check for questions and sometimes even answer them. So, quick review. Tip of our left finger supports the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger. To keep track of our first set of 16 inhalations. Let me rewind that. To keep track of our first collection of, let's see, 16, 32, 64. Is that right? No. To keep track of our first collection of 16 sets of 16 inhalations, we rest upon the tip of our left middle finger, we rest the great knuckle of our right middle finger. To keep track of our first set of 16 inhalations, we touch the tip of our left thumb to the first set of creases on its little finger. And of course, on our right hand, we begin counting inhalations. Having completed our first set of 16 inhalations, our left thumb now advances, and will do so likewise after each 16th inhalation. I would like to share with you what some would consider a radical teaching. Actually, a handful of radical teachings. Here's the first one. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including humans, including meditation teachers. That suckiness looks like folks getting stuck in the tendencies of being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. William Shakespeare is said to have written that the mind can make a hell out of a heaven. These are the attributes that make that happen. These are the people who are so perpetually uptight that they cannot help but misconstrue a figure of speech for a literal statement. These are the people who will not test their assumptions in the crucible of their own body and mind. This is what Karl Marx described as dialectic materialism, which is taking action, noticing your results, and then modifying future actions based on the analysis of those results. Other people call that the scientific method. Perhaps it was Sir Francis Bacon. I may be mistaken. So these people do things, and they don't like the results of what they do, and yet they persist. And they turn, they look from side to side at those around them and insist that they persist too. And when these techniques make them do not contribute to their peace or their love, they tell tall tales that these teachings were for different people at a different time, and now it takes multiple lifetimes, an enormous ocean of lifetimes to become a Buddha. But that is not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha said, hey man, you can master this path in as little as a week. This is not the path of being rigid. It's the path of being flexible and loving and rational and laid back and egalitarian and lucid and cooperative and kind. And so I would say to you that the so-called highest teachings of Buddhism, what some people call Dzogchen or Ati Yoga, were always present. The Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. To quote a Jewish carpenter, for those who had eyes to see and ears to hear. In the 2000 aughts, I spend time traveling from monastery to monastery. And so many monks would confide in me that they long to travel to Tibet to receive the secret teachings. The tragedy is they already had all that they needed at their hands. What separated them from the understanding of those techniques was the solidity of their own preconceptions, which functioned like scales upon their eyes, like Saul on the road to Damascus. I think it's very important that any meditation teacher be vulnerable and honest. That they, like anybody else on the path, anybody who has practiced the path, anybody who has mastered the path, is subject to the full spectrum of human emotions. Anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something. But hypocrisy is universal. It is not unique to Tibet or Thailand or America. And we often find teachers putting on airs and acting cutesy as if they've never had a painful thought or a dark emotion. And they can fool the weak-minded for a season. But that is not the path of centered spontaneity. That is not the path of vulnerability. That is the path of folly. Scour YouTube, and you can find young, good-looking monks with a plastered smile upon their face, sharing teachings in the name of Buddha through the lens of being rigid and fearful and elitist and controlling. They have counterparts in every culture and in every religion, and their path is always the same, a dead end masquerading as a shortcut. An individual wrote with a question, asking a question, are you vegan? And the answer is, I'm a vegan. When I look at the Eightfold Path, it is 50% of it is comprised of loving kindness. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing loving nor kind about paying someone to exploit and torture and murder a cow or a fish or a pig because I want a snack. There are 1,001 healthy, whole food, vegan foodstuffs. They're economical and delicious and healthy and do not require exploitation. Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist philosophy or meditation, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. What I'd like to do is seal the practice with some mantra meditation. Not because we desire some sort of metaphysical wish fulfillment, but just because certain syllables and certain sequence can help someone as disabled as myself experience the physical vitality necessary to sit and meditate. If you're watching on the clock app, it might be easier. It would definitely, where's my finger? It'll definitely be easier for you to join me on the Tube app. If you're on the Tube app, you're exactly where you need to be. Let's chant. Oh, I invoke the love that Tade spiritually liberates, and to Tade physically rescues as well as Tade blesses. So may all beings master this dynamism. So, in other words, may all beings everywhere feel love, but also be kind. There you go. Simple wish. So here's how we're going to play with mantra meditation from a Dzogchen perspective. On our inhalation, we're going to recite a loving wish. Every 12 hours or so, let's watch mind's antics and rest in its non-graspable nature. During our exhalation, we're going to do two things. We're going to physically relax as best we can, while simultaneously striving to chant the 10-syllable mantra 4 times per breath, for 4 breaths per set, for a total of 4 sets. Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, 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 Om Tare Nare Nurisawa. Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, 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 Om Tare Nare Nurisawa. Every 12 hours or so, let's watch mind's antics and rest in its non-graspable nature. Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa. Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa. Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa. Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa. Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa, Om Tare Nare Nurisawa. Why, thank you, Now Ni Lei. That's very kind of you. Tare-du-da-de-du-ri-su-wa. Om 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 Tare-du-da-de-du-ri-su-wa. Last three breaths. Om Tare-du-da-de-du-ri-su-wa. 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 You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's tomorrow's first recitation and meditation. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.